Listen, I have been working security at the Galactic Academy for Peace and Learning for 17 cycles now. 17 cycles. And in all that time, I thought I had seen everything. Plasma riots? Check. Dimensional tears in the cafeteria? Double check. A Vrelian student accidentally summoning a void beast during meditation class? Oh yes, that happened on a Tuesday. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day Alpha Vorgan decided he wanted to wipe our academy off the star maps. And certainly nothing prepared me for the two beings who would stand against him. My name is Helpless, by the way. I am a Thrandorian, which means I have 4 arms, excellent peripheral vision, and a natural talent for pessimism. It serves me well in security work. Trust me when I say that optimists do not last long in this job. The morning started normal enough. Well, as normal as things get when you are babysitting 3,000 students from 400 different species. I was doing my usual rounds, checking the perimeter shields, making sure nobody had smuggled in any forbidden artifacts or, heaven forbid, another honey badger. Oh, you want to know about the honey badger? Patience. We will get there. I was halfway through my second cup of bitter xanthian coffee when the alarm started screaming. Not the usual fire drill alarms, mind you. These were the big ones. The ones that only go off when something catastrophically bad is about to happen. The ones that make your internal organs vibrate in frequencies that were definitely not designed for comfort. Kellex to command center. I barked into my communicator, already sprinting toward the main building. My 4 arms were already reaching for my stun weapons. What is the situation? Please tell me it is just another drill. Negative. Kellex. That was Commander Thrace. And she sounded worried. Commander Thrace never sounded worried. We have multiple battlecruisers dropping out of hyperspace. They are broadcasting, on all frequencies. It is Alpha Vorggan. I nearly tripped over my own feet. Alpha Vorggan. The warlord who had been carving a path through the outer systems for the past 5 years. The maniac who believed that education and peaceful cooperation were weaknesses that needed to be purged from the galaxy. The absolute lunatic who commanded a fleet large enough to glass entire planets. And now he was here, at our academy. What does he want? I asked, though I already knew the answer was not going to be good. He wants us to surrender the academy for immediate destruction. Thrace replied, her voice tight. He says that institutions of learning are breeding grounds for weakness and disorder. He is giving us 1 hour to evacuate before he begins orbital bombardment. 1 hour. Fantastic. Just fantastic. I burst into the command center to find controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed Vorgan's fleet in orbit. 12 massive warships arranged in perfect attack formation. On the main screen, the Alpha himself glared down at us. He was a Kelleran, which meant he stood at least 3 meters tall, had scales like living armor, and possessed enough raw physical strength to bend durasteel with his bare hands. Greetings, learned fools, Vorgan said, his voice dripping with contempt. Each word was pronounced like he was explaining something to particularly stupid children. I am giving you this courtesy because even someone like me recognizes that children should not be caught in orbital fire. Evacuate now. Leave this monument to weakness. In 60 minutes, the Galactic Academy for Peace and Learning will be nothing but dust and regret. We are an educational facility. Thrace tried to reason with him. We have students from across the galaxy here, including some from your own territories. Surely you can see that destroying knowledge serves no purpose. Vorgan laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Knowledge without strength is meaningless. Peace without power is fantasy. I am doing the galaxy a favor by removing this infection. 58 minutes remain. The transmission cut off. Options. Thrace looked around the room at her senior staff. The shields will hold for maybe 15 minutes under sustained bombardment, said Nix, our chief engineer. After that, we are toast. Literally. We cannot evacuate everyone in an hour, added Sarah, who ran student affairs. We have students in dormitories, labs, the zero-gravity wing, the aquatic facilities. Some of our students require special atmospheric conditions or temperature regulation. Moving them safely will take at least 4 hours, minimum. I watched as Thrace's face went through several expressions, finally settling on grim determination. Then, we buy time. Kellex, gather every security officer we have. We need to at least make a show of defense while we evacuate as many students as possible. Against 12 battlecruisers? I asked. Commander, I am all for noble last stands, but we have 3 security shuttles and maybe 40 stun rifles. We might as well throw rocks at them. Do you have a better idea? Thrace snapped. I did not, which was when the door to the command center opened, and a small human child walked in. Now, let me explain something about humans. They had only joined the galactic community about 50 years ago, which in cosmic terms is basically yesterday. They were a strange species, not particularly strong compared to many of us, not especially fast. Their senses were decent, but nothing spectacular. By most objective measures, they should have been unremarkable. But they had something, a kind of stubborn insanity that seemed to override basic survival instincts. The first human diplomat to arrive at the Galactic Council had allegedly looked at a Vraxian war chief, a creature that stood 4 meters tall and could bite through titanium, and said, "Nice teeth. Do they come with a warranty?" This particular human child could not have been more than 10 of their years old. He had messy brown hair, bright green eyes, and was wearing what I later learned was called a hoodie. He was also completely calm, which was the first sign that something very strange was about to happen. "Excuse me," the child said politely. "My name is Tommy Reeves, and I think I can help." Every adult in the room turned to stare at him. "Tommy, sweetie, how did you get in here?" Sarah rushed over, her maternal instincts overriding protocol. "You should be with your class in the evacuation staging area." "I know," Tommy said, "but I heard what that mean alien said, and I do not think we should let him blow up our school." "Neither do we, kid," I said, trying to be gentle. "But this is a grown-up problem. We need you to go somewhere safe." Tommy looked at me with those unsettling green eyes. "You cannot fight him, can you?" "Not effectively, no." "What if I told you I brought someone who can?" Before anyone could respond, something trotted into the command center behind Tommy. Something small, compact, and utterly terrifying to anyone who knew what they were looking at. It was a honey badger. Now, most species in the galaxy have an equivalent. Some creature that evolution designed specifically to be an absolute nightmare. A creature that attacks first and never bothers with questions. A creature with no fear, no quit, and absolutely no sense of proportion when it comes to violence. But honey badgers, specifically Earth honey badgers, had achieved an almost legendary status among those of us who studied human culture. They were nature's way of saying, what if we made something that simply does not care? They had been known to fight off lions, eat venomous snakes for breakfast, and break into beehives protected by thousands of angry bees just for a snack. This particular honey badger looked around the command center with what I can only describe as professional interest, like it was evaluating whether anything in the room was worth fighting or eating. "Everyone, this is Scraggs," Tommy said cheerfully. "He is my best friend." "That thing is your pet?" Thrace asked, her voice rising an octave. "Scraggs is not a pet," Tommy corrected. "He is a partner, and he does not like bullies." The honey badger, Scraggs, made a sound that was somewhere between a grunt and a growl. It was the audio equivalent of someone cracking their knuckles before a fight. "Tommy," I said carefully, "because you do not want to upset either a human child or a honey badger. I appreciate the thought, truly. But even a honey badger cannot fight a battle fleet." Tommy smiled. It was the kind of smile that made my survival instincts start screaming. "Who said anything about fighting the fleet? We just need to fight the Alpha." "The Alpha is on a command ship in orbit," Nix pointed out, "surrounded by shields, automated defenses, and about 300 heavily armed soldiers. I admire your confidence, kid, but physics is still physics." "Not if you use a boarding pod," Tommy replied. "I checked the Academy specifications. We have 12 of them in the emergency bay. They are designed to punch through shields and deliver rescue teams to damaged ships, right?" He was correct. The boarding pods were essentially armored missiles with life support. They could theoretically penetrate a warship's shields through brute force and direct velocity. But using them was considered insanely dangerous because, well, you were essentially shooting yourself at a spaceship and hoping the impact did not turn you into paste. "You want to board Vorgan's command ship?" Thrace said slowly. "Not me," Tommy corrected. "Scraggs." The honey badger looked up at the mention of his name and made that knuckle-cracking sound again. "Okay, hold on," I said. My 4 hands raised in a gesture that universally meant, "Everyone, please stop talking. You are suggesting we shoot a honey badger at a warlord's flagship?" "Yes," Tommy said simply. "And you think a honey badger can somehow defeat Alpha Vorgan?" "Yes. A creature that weighs maybe 15 kilograms against a 3-meter-tall Kelleran warrior who has personally killed hundreds of opponents in single combat." "Yep." We all looked at Scraggs. Scraggs looked back at us with eyes that suggested he had fought and won against worse odds before breakfast. "This is insane," Nix muttered. "This is brilliant," Thrace said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at her. "Think about it. Vorgan is expecting us to either surrender or put up a token resistance. He is not expecting a boarding action. And he is definitely not expecting a honey badger." "Commander," I started. "This violates about 47 different regulations, not to mention basic common sense. We have 50 minutes left." "Kellex," Thrace said. "Do you have a better plan?" I did not. Nobody did. "Fine," I said. "But I am going with them. If we are doing something this monumentally stupid, I want to at least witness it." "Me too," said Nix. "Someone needs to pilot the pod and override their security systems." Tommy beamed at us. "Great. Scraggs and I already packed supplies. We brought sandwiches." "You brought sandwiches to fight a warlord?" I asked. "Fighting makes Scraggs hungry," Tommy explained, as if this was the most logical thing in the world. "And humans get cranky on empty stomachs." 15 minutes later, I found myself strapped into a boarding pod with a human child, a honey badger, and our ship's chief engineer. This was not how I thought my career would go. "Pod launch in 30 seconds, Nix called out from the pilot seat. "Everyone hold on to something. This is going to be rough." "Define rough," I asked. "We are going to experience forces equivalent to being hit by a cargo hauler moving at terminal velocity. Then we are going to punch through military-grade shields using nothing but momentum and prayers. Then, assuming we survive the first 2 parts, we are going to crash into the hull of a warship while traveling at approximately 8,000 kilometers per hour. So, pretty rough," I said. "Pretty rough," Nix confirmed. Tommy was busy petting Scraggs and whispering something to him. The honey badger looked remarkably calm for a creature about to be shot through space like a furry missile. "Launch in 10 seconds, Nix announced. 9, 8, 7. I closed all 4 of my eyes and wondered what my ancestors would think of me right now. Probably something along the lines of, "We survived the Great Extinction War so our descendants could ride in a pod with a honey badger." 3, 2, 1, launch. The pod shot forward like we had been fired from the universe's largest cannon. My internal organs tried to exit through my spine. Colors I did not know existed flashed before my eyes. I heard someone screaming and realized it was me. Then we hit Vorgan's shields. The impact was like being inside a bell while someone hit it with a sledgehammer. Alarms shrieked. The pod's hull groaned in protest. For a brief, terrifying moment, I thought we were going to bounce off and tumble into space. Then we punched through. "We are in," Nix shouted triumphantly. "Brace for impact." The second collision was somehow worse than the first. We hit the command ship's outer hull with enough force to create our own crater. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. The pod spun 3 times before magnetic clamps engaged and locked us in place. Then, everything went quiet. "Is everyone alive?" I asked, taking inventory of my limbs. "I am okay," Tommy said. "Functioning," Nix confirmed. Scraggs made a sound that I interpreted as, "I have survived worse." "Right," I said, unbuckling my harness with shaking hands. "Now we just need to find Alpha Vorgan." somehow convince him to call off the attack, and avoid being killed by his 300 soldiers. Simple. Tommy reached into his backpack and pulled out what looked like a crude map. I studied the schematics of Kelleron command ships during Xeno-architecture class. The Alpha's command throne should be 12 decks above us. Central axis, forward section. Of course you did, I muttered. Nix opened the pod's hatch. We stepped out into a corridor that was immediately filled with emergency lighting and alarm sounds. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear heavy footsteps running toward our position. Company incoming, I warned, readying my stun rifle. Scraggs will handle it, Tommy said confidently. The honey badger hopped out of the pod, stretched like he had just woken up from a nap, and then proceeded to trot down the corridor toward the approaching soldiers like he owned the place. 3 heavily armed Kelleron warriors rounded the corner. They stopped dead when they saw Scraggs. There was a moment of confused silence. Then Scraggs attacked. What followed was less of a fight and more of a natural disaster. Scraggs moved like violence given physical form. He went for ankles, knees, any exposed joints. The soldiers tried to shoot him, but he was too fast, too low to the ground, and apparently too angry to care about minor inconveniences like weapons fire. In under 30 seconds, all 3 warriors were on the ground, groaning and clearly reconsidering their life choices. See? Tommy said. Scraggs does not like bullies. We followed the honey badger through the ship. It was like having the galaxy's most aggressive tour guide. Any soldier who tried to stop us quickly learned that opposing a honey badger was a losing proposition. Scraggs cleared the path with ruthless efficiency. We made it to the command deck in record time. The doors were sealed, naturally. Stand back, Nick said, pulling out a plasma torch. Or we could just knock, Tommy suggested, and then proceeded to bang on the door with his small fist. Mr. Vorggan, we are here to talk about your life choices. The door hissed open. Alpha Vorggan himself stood there, towering over us, scales gleaming in the harsh lighting. He looked down at our group with a mixture of confusion and fury. A child, a Thrandorian security guard, an engineer, and, he paused, staring at Scraggs. What is that thing? That thing is Scraggs, Tommy said, and he would like you to leave our school alone. Vorggan laughed. It echoed through the command deck. You brought a small animal to threaten me? I have conquered 12 systems. I have personally defeated champions from 40 different species. What makes you think I will fear some earth creature? Scraggs looked up at the Alpha. Then he made that sound again. The knuckle-cracking sound. Vorgan's expression changed slightly. There is a saying among warriors across the galaxy. The most dangerous opponent is not the one who roars and threatens. It is the one who is quiet, calm, and completely ready to commit violence at a moment's notice. Scraggs was very quiet. Last chance, Tommy said. Turn your ships around and leave, or Scraggs will convince you. Vorggan reached for his plasma blade. I will crush this creature, and then I will destroy your academy. What happened next became legend. Scraggs launched himself at Alpha Vorggan like a missile made of teeth and fury. And that is where part 1 ends. Because what comes next, well, that deserves its own telling. If you have never seen a honey badger fight a 3-meter-tall warlord, let me paint you a picture. Actually, no. There is no painting this. There is only surviving the experience and then spending the rest of your life trying to process what your eyes just witnessed. Scraggs hit Vorggan in the chest with enough force that the Alpha actually stumbled backward. The warlord swung his plasma blade in a wide arc that should have vaporized the small creature. Scraggs ducked under it with precision that would make a professional acrobat weep, then proceeded to climb up Vorgan's armor like it was a particularly aggressive ladder. Get it off me, Vorggan bellowed, swatting at Scraggs with hands that could crush stone. Get this demon off me. Scraggs responded by biting down on what I assume was a very sensitive part of Vorgan's shoulder joint. The Alpha howled. His soldiers started moving toward us, weapons raised. I would not do that if I were you, Tommy said calmly to the approaching guards. Scraggs gets really upset when people interrupt his conversations. One soldier apparently did not believe a human child and fired a plasma bolt at Scraggs. The shot went wide because at that exact moment, Scraggs had maneuvered Vorggan between himself and the shooter. The bolt hit Vorggan square in his back armor, which held but definitely did not tickle. "You idiots!" Vorggan roared at his own troops. "Stop shooting, you will hit me." Scraggs used this distraction to scramble up to Vorggan's head. The Alpha grabbed at him, managed to get one hand around the honey badger's body, and pulled him away. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this was over. Then Scraggs twisted in midair, latched onto Vorggan's wrist with his teeth, and refused to let go. The Alpha shook his arm violently. Scraggs held on like he was personally welded there. I have seen magnetic clamps with weaker grips. "Why will it not release me?" Vorggan yelled, genuine panic creeping into his voice. This was a being who had faced down entire armies without flinching, and he was being reduced to hysteria by 15 kilograms of terrestrial mammal. "Because you threatened his friend's school," Tommy explained, like this was completely obvious. "Scraggs takes friendship very seriously." Vorggan slammed his arm against a nearby console, trying to dislodge the honey badger. Scraggs held tight. The consoles sparked and shattered. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Vorggan tried again with a support pillar. The pillar dented. Scraggs remained attached. "This is impossible," Vorggan shrieked. "Nothing can withstand this kind of force." "Scraggs is not nothing," I said helpfully. "He is a honey badger. They are kind of famous for not caring about things like physics or self-preservation." Meanwhile, Nyx had been quietly working at one of the intact command consoles. "Hey, Kellex," she called out. "I am into their communications array. Should I do something about the fleet?" "What can you do?" I asked, keeping one eye on the ongoing battle between warlord and mammal. "Well, I could send a fake evacuation order. Make it look like it is coming from Vorggan himself. Tell all ships to retreat to the outer system for tactical reassessment." "Would that work?" "Probably not," Nyx admitted. "But between the alarms going off, their Alpha screaming about demons, and the general confusion, they might just follow orders out of habit. Military types love following orders." "Do it," I said. "What did we have to lose at this point?" Nyx's fingers flew across the console. "Evacuation order sent. All ships commanded to retreat immediately." Signed with Vorggan's personal command codes, which I may have borrowed without permission. On the tactical display, I watched as Vorggan's fleet began to slowly pull back. One ship, then another, then all of them. They were actually leaving. I could not believe it. "My fleet." Vorggan noticed the display between attempts to pry Scraggs off his arm. "No. Come back. That is not a real order. I am being attacked by a small animal. Come back." Somehow, screaming that he was being attacked by a small animal did not improve his credibility with his departing fleet. Funny how that works. Scraggs finally released Vorggan's wrist and dropped to the floor. The Alpha clutched his arm, breathing heavily. His scales were scratched. His armor was dented. His dignity was absolutely shredded. He looked down at the honey badger with something that might have been respect or might have been terror. Possibly both. "What are you?" Vorggan asked quietly. Scraggs sat back on his haunches and made a noise that sounded remarkably satisfied. "He is Scraggs," Tommy said, walking over to stand beside his friend. The boy looked up at the massive warlord without a trace of fear. "And you just learned why humans do not pick fights they cannot win. We bring friends who can win them for us." "You are a child," Vorggan said, still breathing hard. "You brought one animal. How did you think this would work?" "It did work," Tommy pointed out. "Your fleet is leaving. Your command deck is compromised. Your soldiers are afraid of a honey badger. I would say it worked perfectly." Vorggan looked around his command deck. His soldiers were indeed keeping a very respectful distance from Scraggs. Several of them had their weapons trained on the honey badger, but nobody seemed eager to pull the trigger after watching what happened to their Alpha. "You cannot stop me forever," Vorggan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I will return with more ships, more soldiers. I will prepare for your Earth creatures." "You could do that," I interjected, stepping forward. "Or you could make a different choice. Walk away. Find another crusade. Preferably one that does not involve threatening schools full of children. I am Alpha Vorgan. The warlord drew himself up to full height, trying to salvage some authority. I do not walk away from anything, Scraggs growled. Just a low rumble from deep in his throat. But it was enough to make Vorgan take a step backward. Okay, Vorgan said quickly. Perhaps I walk away from some things. Small things. Furry things with teeth. And you will leave the academy alone? Tommy pressed. Yes, fine. The academy is safe. Vorgan threw his hands up in frustration. But I want it on record that this is only because of that monster you brought with you. Scraggs is not a monster, Tommy said firmly. He is just very good at solving problems. That thing is a living weapon, Vorgan muttered, still eyeing the honey badger warily. No, Tommy corrected. He is my best friend. There is a difference. We heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy, organized footsteps. Vorgan's reinforcements had finally arrived, apparently deciding that sheer numbers might overcome one honey badger. Commander, one of the soldiers reported, carefully not looking at Scraggs. We have secured the breach point. Shall we eliminate the intruders? Vorgan looked at his soldiers, then at us, then at Scraggs, who was currently grooming himself like none of this had been particularly stressful. The Alpha sighed deeply. No, Vorgan said. Escort them back to their boarding pod. They are leaving, and we are leaving. Send the order to all remaining ships. Full retreat to the outer systems. Sir? The soldier looked confused. But we have them cornered. We could take the academy easily now. Have you not been listening to me for the past 15 minutes? Vorgan snapped. We are retreating. That is an order. And if anyone asks why, tell them that Alpha Vorgan has decided that educational institutions are not strategic targets worth pursuing. Tell them I had an enlightening philosophical debate about the value of learning. Tell them anything except the truth. Which is, 1. The soldier asked. That I got beaten up by something that weighs less than my breakfast, Vorgan said miserably. The soldiers escorted us back through the ship. Word had apparently spread about Scraggs because every warrior we passed gave the honey badger a wide berth. Some even saluted him. Scraggs ignored them all with magnificent indifference. When we reached the boarding pod, Nix checked the systems. We are going to have a rough ride back, but she will fly. Barely. I am okay with barely at this point, I said. Today has been full of barely surviving things. Tommy picked up Scraggs and hugged him. You did great, buddy. I am proud of you. Scraggs made a contented sound and licked the boy's face. It was almost cute. Almost. If you could forget that 5 minutes ago, this creature had terrorized a legendary warlord. We strapped in and launched away from Vorgan's command ship. Through the pod's small viewport, I watched the entire fleet break orbit and vanish into hyperspace. They were actually gone. A fleet that could have glassed our entire planet had been defeated by one human child, one honey badger, and a series of increasingly unlikely decisions. Kellex to Academy Command, I said into my communicator. Mission successful. Vorgan's fleet is retreating. Repeat, the threat is over. What happened up there? Commander Thrace's voice crackled back. Our sensors show the entire fleet leaving. Did you negotiate with them? Not exactly, I said. It was more of a physical education demonstration. Care to elaborate? Not particularly, no. I will file a full report when we land. But Commander, you might want to make sure the student handbook includes a section about bringing honey badgers to school. Apparently they are very effective at conflict resolution. The pod rattled and shook as we descended through the atmosphere. Next to me, Tommy was sharing a sandwich with Scraggs. The honey badger munched contentedly, apparently no worse for wear after fighting a warlord. Tommy, I said, can I ask you something? Sure, Mr. Kellex. How did you know this would work? How did you know Scraggs could handle an alpha? Tommy shrugged. I did not know for sure, but Scraggs has protected me from bullies before. Back on Earth, there was this kid who kept taking my lunch money. Scraggs followed me to school one day and sat on the bully until he apologized and promised to be nicer. If Scraggs could handle that, I figured he could handle Alpha Vorgan. You compared a galactic warlord to a school bully, I said flatly. They are pretty similar when you think about it, Tommy said. Both of them pick on people who cannot fight back. Both of them think being bigger makes them right. And both of them do not know what to do when someone actually stands up to them. Out of the mouths of babes, as the human saying goes. This 10-year-old child had summarized in 3 sentences what political scientists spent entire careers trying to explain. We landed at the academy to find half the student body waiting for us. News had spread fast. As the pod doors opened, a cheer erupted that probably could be heard from orbit. Commander Thrace was first to greet us. She looked at our group, particularly at Scraggs, with an expression I could not quite read. That animal saved the academy, she said slowly. Scraggs is not just an animal, Tommy said. He is a hero. Also illegal according to academy regulations, Thrace pointed out. No Earth fauna except registered service animals are permitted on campus. Oh no. Tommy's face fell. Does that mean Scraggs has to leave? Thrace looked at the honey badger. Scraggs looked back at her with those dark eyes that had stared down a warlord without blinking. The commander cleared her throat. However, she continued, I think we can make an exception for registered security personnel. Kellex, you need a partner, do you not? I looked down at Scraggs. Scraggs looked up at me. I swear the creature winked. I suppose I do, I said. Though I should warn you, Commander. If I am partnering with Scraggs, I am going to need a bigger uniform budget. He is tough on equipment. Done, Thrace said. Welcome to Academy Security Officer Scraggs. The crowd cheered again. Students from dozens of species pressed forward, wanting to see the honey badger who had saved their school. Scraggs endured the attention with patient tolerance, though I noticed he stayed close to Tommy. For all his ferocity, he was still loyal to his friend first. Over the next few days, the story spread across the galaxy. The Galactic News Network ran it as their top story for a week straight. Alpha Vorgan's reputation never recovered. Apparently getting defeated by a small Earth mammal is not great for one's credentials as a fearsome warlord. He retired from Conquest 6 months later, and last I heard was running a quiet mining operation on the edge of nowhere, probably still checking under his bunk for honey badgers. Tommy became something of a celebrity at the academy. Other human students suddenly found themselves much more popular. After all, if humans could train honey badgers, what else could they do? There was a new respect for Earth in general and its fauna in particular. As for me, I got promoted to head of security. Apparently successfully defending an academy using unconventional tactics looks good on performance reviews. My first act was to commission a statue for the main plaza. It shows a small boy standing next to a honey badger, looking up at the stars. The plaque reads, "In memory of the day, we learned that courage comes in all sizes." Scraggs adapted well to academy life. He split his time between security patrols with me and attending classes with Tommy. The professors quickly learned to never underestimate the human boy with the honey badger. Once, during an advanced tactics course, the instructor said that some scenarios had no winning solution. Tommy raised his hand and said, "Have you tried using a honey badger?" The instructor marked it as a valid strategy. 6 months after the incident, the Galactic Council passed the Scraggs resolution. It officially recognized honey badgers as acceptable security personnel for educational institutions. It also strongly recommended that potential aggressors consider whether attacking schools was worth potentially facing Earth fauna. One afternoon, I found Tommy and Scraggs on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. I sat down beside them, my forearms folded comfortably. "Thinking about anything important?" I asked. "Just wondering what other bullies are out there," Tommy said, "and whether Scraggs and I will need to talk to them too." "Let us hope not," I said. The galaxy could not handle too many more incidents like that. Scraggs made a contented sound. I had learned to interpret his various noises. This one meant, "Bring them on. I am ready." "You know," I said, "when I started this job I thought security meant checking IDs and breaking up food fights. I never imagined I would be working with a human and a honey badger to stop warlords. Is that a bad thing?" Tommy asked. "No," I admitted. "It is actually pretty great. Strange, terrifying, and occasionally life-threatening. But great. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the ships come and go from the academy. Students from hundreds of worlds, all learning together, all safe because one small boy had refused to accept that bigger always meant stronger. That night, I updated my security logs. Under threat assessment protocols, I added a new category: Earth fauna, subsection honey badger. Threat level: catastrophic. Recommended response if encountered: do not engage. Negotiate politely. Offer sandwiches. Retreat slowly while maintaining eye contact. Then I went to check on the perimeter shields, with Officer Scraggs trotting beside me. He had his security badge clipped to his collar and took his duties very seriously. We made an odd pair, the four-armed Thrandorian and the honey badger. But we worked. And if any would-be conqueror ever decided to threaten the Galactic Academy for peace and learning again, well, they would have to go through us first. Something told me they would not want to try. Because the galaxy had learned an important lesson that day. You can have the biggest ships, the most advanced weapons, and the fiercest warriors. But none of that matters if you are going up against a human child and his best friend, a creature that evolution designed specifically to not care about your threats. The academy was safe, the students were learning, and somewhere in the outer systems, Alpha Vorgan was probably still having nightmares about small furry creatures with teeth. As for me, I had the easiest security job in the galaxy. Nobody wanted to attack a place guarded by a honey badger. It was perfect. Tommy Reeves and Officer Scraggs had saved the day, and in doing so, they had proven that sometimes the best response to overwhelming force is not more force. Sometimes it is just bringing a friend who absolutely refuses to back down.